This is Jack again. Okay, so I was explaining about who was all involved, and then it was first only Anu, Enlil, and Enki, and Marduk. Okay, so now they had the brain and the eyes working perfectly fine. Then they had another situation. The physical form, if you want to call it physical form, but the form in the vessel they developed didn't have to sustain itself in this world. It was cool by itself, so they thought, we've got it now. We've got the design. This is what we need. Perfect. So they went, okay. And they prepared themselves. So Anu said, okay, let me walk in. Anu walked in. He said, it's not working. He can see through it. He can experience it, but he can't actually move it. So he said, what now? And they pondered. They looked at the whole situation, and the Atlanteans were stumped for a moment, and they looked at the situation. A few Atlanteans and Anu, and they said, okay, what now? Anu again went to the book of Ani, and do you want to hear an interesting thing? The forefathers were mainly, the book of Ani comes from a female expression in existence. Ani was the first manifestation of the Anunnaki race itself, and she was the one who asked the questions of where do I come from and how does everything work. And then after she asked those questions, she's the first race, if you want to call it, of the Anunnaki that started asking questions where the book of Ani comes from. And so he went back to her and he said, okay, now what? And he realized that in the book of Ani it is said there that they didn't know exactly how they were going to walk into a form like this and manifest themselves in a separate form. Because everyone played with manifestation then, because in terms, it's an interesting, it's fascinating, manifesting yourself, manifesting a different form within which you're able to walk into and then walk around. And so along came none other than the Sirians at this point of time. And they said the following: you require something inside this physical, in this form, in this vessel, okay? So this vessel sustains itself, so that you don't have to sustain it, but you can just walk in and power it, meaning take it over as a force, as that which makes it move. An essence of and he said, is it like an essence of a machine? And of course, I didn't understand what he meant by machines, but Syrians themselves were very much in machine-like development and forms. Their planet was also very system-like. And that's how basically they worked or existed on their planet. They had manifestations of the machines, and they were that which powered and moved them accordingly. He said, that's what you need inside it. And they said, okay, well, how is this going to work? Do we really need to do that? Because I just need to find a point where I'm able to just walk in and move this form, because it's not working. And he said, trust me, put in something that has to sustain itself, and then you can walk into that and just be like that essence, that source which powers that system inside it. He says, well, why must it be that way? Because I'm not that, I don't look like that. I'm here completely one. And he said, well, do the following. Remember, you're walking into something. You are not that something, that form. You're not that what you're putting in there. So you need something which becomes that, which is one with that, so that you just become that one point, even if it's just in the brain, that activates it, and then it starts moving. And then Anu went, aha, that could just work. So that's where the Syrians and who was also involved. Firstly, only the Syrians that started developing the systems, that which assist this form to sustain itself in on this planet. Now, where did they get their ideas from? The Syrians manifested themselves mechanically, systematically, from their planet in their world. In other words, basically what they did was they placed that which that Anu and them themselves consisted of and existed as into a physical manifested system form. So what they did was they connected then the brain area, the eyes was one placement, all along the spine. So if you have the skeleton and they placed in like a metallic system inside it, which was penetrated like a pin inside the center of the skeleton, also around the skeleton. So that was basically the foundation of the system. Okay, and then then what they did was they had the center point inside the brain area, which was like an antenna. Okay, now that was the point which would activate this entire form to move, to sustain itself, and you are that which make this form think, that which make this form do, that which moves this form accordingly, that which make this form speak. That's you. But you're not the form. So I was explaining, yeah, so the form itself, I don't know if I've covered this, but I'll cover it again if it's necessary. You've asked the question of where the form itself derived from. So the form itself is sound. The form itself was developed from sound. Okay, I'll cover that in my next interview, thanks.